The movie starts with a guy named Frank Vega. He's a Vietnam War veteran who's had a rough life. One day, he's riding the bus when he sees two young guys harassing people, even picking on an old man. Frank steps in and stops them, giving them a good beating.
I told you I didn't want to fight. Fucking told you.
That moment reminds him of his past. As a kid, he lived a quiet life with his parents. When he got older, he had a girlfriend, and they planned to get married after he came back from the war. But the war lasted way longer than expected. He was stuck in Vietnam for 10 years. When he finally returned home, he found out his girlfriend had moved on. She married someone else and had a family. Heartbroken, Frank tried to become a cop, thinking his military background would help, but he didn't get accepted. He struggled to find work, so he ended up running a hot dog stand for most of his life. Then things got worse. A newer, fancier hot dog truck showed up and stole his customers. With no income, Frank ended up on the streets. Back to the bus fight. Someone recorded the whole thing and posted it online. The video blew up, and suddenly Frank became famous. People started calling him a badass. He got invited to talk shows, got attention from the media, and even got a ride along from the police. A few months later, his mother passed away. She left Frank her house and their dog. Around this time, Frank's old friend from the war, Klondike Washington, came to stay with him. Klondike gave Frank a USB drive that belonged to Frank's mom, saying it was for her safety deposit box. Frank didn't know what was on it, so he just put it away. One night, Klondike went out for cigarettes but ran into two men, Terence and Sebastian. They were looking for that USB drive. Klondike told them he didn't have it. They didn't believe him. An argument broke out and they ended up killing him. When Frank hears about Klondike's death, he's crushed. He goes to the morgue, sees his friend's body, and asks the police to take the case seriously. One officer, Mellock, tells him the department is working on it, but Frank isn't convinced. He sees other cases being solved faster and notices the cops aren't putting much effort into Klondike's murder. So Frank decides to investigate on his own. He checks out the alley where Klondike was killed and finds some bullet casings and a locket with a photo of a woman inside. He takes the items to a pawn shop, where the guy there says the locket belongs to a man named Terence, and the woman in the photo is Terence's wife. The shopkeeper gives Frank an address. Frank visits Terence's home, but he's not there. His wife says he hasn't been home for days. Frank gives her the locket back and asks if she knows where he might be. She mentions that he used to play basketball at a nearby park. Frank heads to the park and asks some guys playing basketball if they know Terrence. They laugh at him and mock him. Frank loses his patience and beats them up.
Yo.
Turns out they're Terrence's friends. After the fight, they tell Frank they don't know where Terrence is but mention a guy named Rinaldo who might. Frank then goes to find Rinaldo. He talks to Rinaldo's roommate, who tells him Rinaldo is hanging out at a bar. Frank goes to the bar but runs into trouble with some guys who don't want him there. He takes them down too and eventually gets to Rinaldo. Rinaldo doesn't want to talk, but Frank pressures him. Rinaldo finally says that Terence has been spending time with a woman named Tanya. Meanwhile, there's a gangster named Panther who's actually in charge of Terence and Sebastian. Panther's working with the city's corrupt mayor, Major Williams. The mayor wants Panther to get that USB drive back fast because it holds proof of his shady deals. Turns out Klondike used to work with Panther. Before he left the crew, he took the drive, knowing it had dirt on the mayor's illegal activities, especially a secret oil drilling deal. Back to Frank. He teams up with his young neighbor, Martin, to figure out what's on the USB. Frank then visits Tanya, who works at a massage place. He asks her about Terence, but she won't say much. So he follows her home and sneaks into her apartment where he finds Terence. Frank gets rough with him, trying to get him to talk. Terence stays quiet at first, so Frank smashes his hand into the trash can lid to scare him. It works. Terence admits that Klondike was killed because he stole the flash drive. It had information about the mayor's plans to dig for oil in the neighborhood. He also tells Frank where to find Panther. Before Frank goes after Panther, he hears a commotion next door. His neighbor Amber is being attacked by her abusive husband. Frank steps in and stops it. Grateful, Amber invites him to stay for lunch. They get close, and right when they're about to kiss, Martin Jr. walks in and interrupts them. Frank tells Amber and Martin they can stay at his place until he fixes her broken door. Later, Frank hands the USB drive to Officer Mellark and goes to face Panther. But Panther already knows Frank is coming and tells his men to attack if Frank doesn't bring the drive. Frank walks into an ambush, gets knocked out, and is tortured. They shock him, trying to make him talk, but Frank doesn't break. Panther finds Frank's wallet and heads to his house, thinking the flash drive might be there. Meanwhile, Frank escapes by using a match Amber gave him. He sets fire to some oil drums, causing a huge explosion. Panther runs off, and Frank chases him. They both hijack buses and start a wild chase through the streets, damaging everything in their path. The chase ends with both buses crashing. Frank keeps chasing Panther on foot. He runs into the same two punks from the bus again. They try to film themselves beating him up, but Frank fights them off and keeps going after Panther. Panther makes it to Frank's house and finds Amber. He threatens her, but Frank shows up just in time. They fight outside in the yard. When Panther gets the upper hand, Amber jumps on his back to help Frank. That gives Frank the opening he needs to take Panther down. The police arrive and arrest Panther. They also arrest Mayor Williams after the media reveals all his illegal activity. In the end, Frank, Amber, and Martin live together peacefully. Frank's finally found purpose again. The story shows that sometimes you don't need a badge to do the right thing, just some guts and good people around you.